But today's message, I want to share with you about who Jesus is to us. And I know that this is going to be early on. It's going to be a little basic. We're going to get a little bit more deeper in detail. But I want to just share this information because I think sometimes we get so hung up on spiritual gifts, and that's a big deal. You should want to have more spiritual gifts. He says, don't crave it above everything else. I mean, we should love people above everything else. But sometimes we get hung up on everything else. We got to get back to the basics of who Jesus is to us. And I think sometimes, I know for me, as a pastor and as a leader, even when I was working in corporations, I remember there have been moments where I lost my why. So I would get up in the morning like, I don't even want to go, why am I even working here? What am I doing? And I had to remind myself why I was there and I was equipped to do the job God called me to do at the moment. And so I think sometimes even in church we get like that. It's just like we go to church, we check a box. We go to life group, we check a box. We worship a little bit, we check a box. And I think sometimes we forget just exactly what Jesus did for us. And so I want to just remind us this morning, 4 things that I want to remind us about what Jesus did for us and what he is doing through us that we need to be reminded about. Now, when Jesus showed up, he started saying stuff to people and trying to tell them in stories, parables, in ways that they would understand. And so he would use analogies like sheeps and sheepfold, and as we know today, that would be the church. And so Jesus is speaking to the disciples and some people around him, and of course there's Pharisees mixed in. And so we're going to look at John 10, and really this is going to be verses 1 through 10 that we're going to dig into this morning, because he shares a lot in these 10 verses that I think, to me, honestly, it goes from salvation to what we're supposed to do with that salvation. So in these 10 verses, there's a lot going on. So John 10, verse 1, he says this, Jesus is speaking. He says, "Tell you the truth, that anyone who sneaks over the wall of the sheepfold." Now, if we're talking about a sheepfold, we're talking about a fence full of sheep, and today that would be a church, and so this is not just a church, but the church. And so what he's saying is, we're talking about the sheepfold is the church, and so it's a big old flock of sheep. And so we have sheep here. You guys are sheep, and God's called me to be the shepherd, but he says it's bigger than that. We're all the sheep, and he's the shepherd. So he keeps going with this. He says, so I tell you the truth, anyone who sneaks over the wall of the sheepfold, rather than going through the gate, must surely be a thief and a robber. Now, I thought that was interesting because I thought a thief and a robber were the same thing. I was like, well, a thief and a robber, that's basically the same thing. Not in the original language. It actually means 2 different things. And so he's giving us a warning here about there's going to be sheep in the sheepfold, but there's also going to be some people trying to get into the sheepfold that's going to try to get into the church, and they're really thieves and robbers. And so I want to show you what these actually mean in the original language, the way that this was written. It was written thief and robber because they mean 2 different things. And so let me just show you what they mean. Check this out. A robber is a freebooter. I don't know if you know what a freebooter is, but a freebooter is basically a pirate. It's somebody who just take stuff. I mean, they just basically walk into a store, take what they want, and walk out. That's what a freebooter is. A lot of times they'll put a mask on or put gloves on, or they'll sneak in the back door. They'll sneak into a window that's open. We used to have college and career at the church that we attended when I was in college and career. In fact, our leader just passed away about a month ago, but at the time he was leading us. Like Sunday nights we go to his house, and we had this guy that came in, and he was he was from the streets, and so anyway stuff was go missing, and we kind of just assumed it was him that took it, and we come to find out it was him. He took it. I don't know, anybody know who Clay Cross is? Got like 1 person, 2 people, 3. Okay, Clay Cross. He's old school. He was contemporary Christian before contemporary Christian was cool. All right, Clay Cross. So I had a Clay Cross CD, and it went missing. This joker stole my Clay Cross CD, and I shouldn't have been mad about that, but somehow I was. But this dude was just taking stuff. And so we found out one time he snuck into our leader's home and took some stuff. Well, come to find out, when we would get there, he would go in like a window. And then we'd do our little thing, then we'd all leave. And while he was at work during the week, he was sneaking through that window and go take whatever he wanted. He didn't go through the front door. He didn't have a key to the house. He was sneaking through the window. And so that's what a robber does. It's a pirate. It's a person who just comes in and takes what they want. And they're not supposed to be there. But a thief is something different. A thief is actually talks about a false, in this original definition, talking about a false teacher, an embezzler. So, and here's the difference between a robber and an embezzler. An embezzler has the right to be there. I've never heard about an embezzlement that happened when somebody didn't have some sort of trust with some people. So an embezzlement is when you steal money that's not yours, but you're doing it from a place of honor. You're doing it from a place of trust. And so people embezzle money, they're actually sneaking that money out through another way, but they have the right. They look like they're supposed to be there. They're behind the desk. They got the suit on, everything. Enron. There's just all kind of stuff. You can go back and look at story after story after story, but it looked like they were supposed to be there. So a false teacher is someone who looks like they're supposed to be there. And we have to understand that the devil's trying to infiltrate the church with robbers and thieves. Robbers who aren't supposed to be there taking stuff. They're trying to, basically what he's saying is those who come into the sheepfold trying to jump off the wall. We're going to see just a second what he's talking about, but it's those who try to get there without going down the right path. In fact, Timothy tells us about false teachers that are coming to the church and really just causing all kind of destruction. But here's what he says about it. Look at what Timothy says. Or Paul writes to Timothy and says this. For a time is coming when people no longer listen to sound, wholesome teaching, talking about false teachers. They will follow their own desires and will look for teachers, false teachers, who will tell them whatever their itching ears want to hear. So there's going to be a time coming, and I'm going to tell you the time is here, when people will just want to go and sit and hear what they want to hear. They want to hear that it's okay, that what they're doing is fine. Let me justify my sin. I can sleep with my girlfriend or boyfriend. It's fine. I saw it on TV. I can do it. I can abort my baby if I want to because it's my body, my choice. I can go get drunk and get sloppy drunk and act crazy because Jesus forgives me. And people want to hear these things, that it's okay to live a life like that. And Jesus is saying, no, you have the freedom to do those things, but you shouldn't do them. It's not okay. Blaspheming the Holy Spirit is not okay. Having a foul mouth is not okay. I was in high school, and I was a senior, and this guy came up to me, a big old boy. He was a fullback on the football team, and he was a sophomore, I think. He said, why don't you cuss, man? I said, you really want to know? He said, yeah. I said, because you sound like an idiot when you do. I don't want to look like an idiot. He's big. Thank goodness he walked off. Coach was calling or something. Called him in. He looked like an idiot. He's afraid of what? Yeah. That is true. Had the fear of the Lord through Lee in me. Hey, look, we had to pick our own switch, y'all. I can't even count how many times I'll be honest with you, the only spankings I ever got, we're going to take a little rabbit trail here. The only spankings I ever got was because of my brother. Am I lying? Not this one, not this. I got two brothers. My oldest one, we were buds. My youngest one, he's the one that just, oh God. I probably should repent for some of the stuff we did to him, but he deserved every second of it. I'm justifying what we did, all right? But you can't just live the life you want to live and go, well, Jesus forgives me of that. That's not Christianity. That's not what Christ died for. And so we have people in the church, we have teachers teaching, just go live the life that you want to live. Just as long as you feel good and it feels good, you'll be okay, and God's going to give you $1 million. Christianity's hard. In fact, I would challenge, one of the hardest things to do, seemingly is weird, is to come to church. That's the easiest thing you'll do. It should be the easiest thing you'll do as a Christian is come to church. And we want to justify that we do what we do. And listen, people are looking for something that's not Christianity because it's a lot easier to follow. In fact, he goes on to say this in the next verse, in verse 4. He says they reject the truth and chase after myths. They reject the truth. They reject and they chase after myths. Well, let's get back to John chapter 10. Look at verse 2. It says, so you have these robbers and thieves that are trying to get in the sheepfold, but the one who enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. So the one who walks through the right way, he's the shepherd of the sheep. And then he tells us about what the sheep did. The sheep actually follow after us. Look at the next verse. Look at verse 3. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep recognize his voice and come to him. They recognize his voice. And if you don't know this, shepherds in other countries, they may do it here, I'm not sure, but the shepherd has a sound that he makes. It's not even a word, he just makes a sound, and the sheep know that sound is the shepherd's sound, and they know it's time to come eat or to follow the shepherd back into the fencing or wherever it is that they're going. Sometimes it's time to be sheared. Hey, we used to take field trips when I was homeschooled, and one of those, that was the coolest one we ever did, was shearing sheep, though. That was pretty cool. One almost uppercut me with a kick, but it was fun. I think pretty much we were free labor. Like, we picked potatoes. You ever picked a potato? It is not fun. Like, I didn't eat a potato for 10 years. I couldn't even. But sheep, and I'll just be honest with you, sheep can be stupid. But one thing that they know is that when they hear, and I'm not talking about y'all, I'm just saying in general. But when they hear that sound, when they hear that, or whatever sound they're making, there's a distinct sound that they make, and the sheep know it's time to go. They know the shepherd's voice. Listen, Jesus came to set the captives free. He came to save us. And I'm not saying he made that sound when he died on the cross, but we know his voice. We know that that wasn't supposed to be funny. We know that when Jesus died on the cross, he came to save us, and we're supposed to follow after him. Jesus came to set us free. He came to bring redemption. He came to bring salvation. And Jesus does 4 things for us. And I want you to know that he's the leader of the sheep. Like y'all are following me, don't follow him. I might lead you in the wrong direction sometimes. I'm not saying hopefully I have your trust, but I'm saying follow me as I follow him. You're really following him. I'm just hopefully in front of you leading. That's what we should be doing. We should be following Jesus. And here's why. Because Jesus saves us. Jesus saves us. He saves us from our sins. He saves us from ourselves. And thank God above, he saves us from an eternity in hell where we will burn forever and ever and ever. He saves us from so many things. Listen, I used to tell people, God saved me from being a drug addict. But I was never on drugs. He saved me from a life of alcoholism, but I never had to drink alcohol to get it. He saved me from addiction to nicotine, but I never smoked. See, he saves us from these things. He saves us from things that's never even happened. In fact, Ephesians tells us this, what he does for us. He saved you by his grace when you believed. You can't take credit for this. There's nothing you can do. We talked about this in prayer this morning. You can't do anything. You can never be good enough to get into heaven on your own. You never can. You'll never be good enough to come into the presence of an almighty, holy God without the righteousness of Christ. You'll never be able to. He says because you got saved because of his grace, you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from God. Look at the next verse. Salvation is not a reward for good things. I'm going to tell you the devil he's got people hemmed up on this one. He's got people locked up on this one. He's got people handcuffed with you got to do good things and you have to do good works, especially in today's world where used to the church really led the charge for social interaction as far as reaching the local community with needs that they may have. Sadly, I don't think the church is the leading force behind that anymore because people realize it's a money-making scheme. You can get money by tugging at people's heartstrings. And so, but I want you to know that it's not, you can't go do none of the good things. Listen, you can serve every single day at this church or wherever you may want to serve or go serve at a soup kitchen for the next 3 years. It won't get you to heaven. You can show up here at 6 a.m. Saturday and serve and help set up and help clean up and stay till everything is done, be the last one to leave. It won't get you to heaven. We had a team yesterday go help somebody clean out a house that had a fire in it. That's amazing. We should do that. It ain't going to get you to heaven. And the devil has tied salvation to good works. And they're very clear about what Jesus did for us. He didn't do it because of anything that we did. He did it because he loved us. And so he says it's not a reward for anything that we've done. So none of us can boast about it. That's so important to see. Look at the next verse. Look at verse 10. For we are God's masterpiece. He created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things he planned for us long ago. You see that? Salvation, then good works. It's not good works and salvation. It's salvation. Jesus saved us so that we could go do good things. We don't go do good things so Jesus will save us. And I'm going to tell you, we get that backwards. And even as a pastor, sometimes I don't feel good enough to be your pastor. Sometimes I don't feel like I'm worthy enough to pray for people. I'll have people call me sometimes late at night or weekend or even during the week. They'll call me by the church. Hey, will you just pray over me? And of myself, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough, but because of his righteousness, I am. But Jesus saves us. He saves us. But here's the second thing. He doesn't leave you where you are. I love this. Jesus doesn't just save you, but he does something else. Look at the second thing he does. He leads us. Jesus saves us, and then he leads us. It's very clear that he actually tells us these words almost verbatim in John chapter 10. Back to John chapter 10, look at verse 3. He calls his sheep by name, and he leads them out. He'll lead you, but you got to want to be led. I know people, and so do you, that got all the answers. They know more than anybody else about a certain situation, and yet they're further away than anybody else. And I'm going to tell you, to me, people who are further away from, I'll just give you an example, financially. I know people who are so deep in debt they can't even see straight, but they got all the answers. They got a way out. You got to be teachable. He leads us. You got to want to be led. Look at the next verse. Look at verse 4. After he has gathered his own flock, he walks ahead of them. So Jesus always leads, he walks ahead, and they follow him because here we see again, they know his voice. I know that I, as a Christ follower, am not still enough. I do way more talking than listening. And if I am listening, I'm really thinking about the next thing I'm about to say. And I ain't even just talking about with Jesus, I'm talking about with people. Anybody else been there? Just they're talking and then they pause, like, uh-oh. Am I supposed to answer this? Husbands, y'all do it with your wives all the time. She should have stood in front of the TV because the game was on, not beside it because you were still watching the game. I do that. I talk too much. And when I'm not talking, I'm thinking about what I should be saying. He walks ahead of us and he leads us. He wants you to be close to him. I've said this before, but y'all got to hear it again. I was at Brooklyn Tab about 10 years ago. In fact, it was probably the year before we started the church, so it was about 11 years ago. We were at Brooklyn Tabernacle in Brooklyn. I tell people, if you're 100 miles away on foot, walk, run there. You got it. I'm telling you, the presence of God, and there's nothing special about the building, but I'm just going to tell you, God falls in that place. They had about 4 services. We weren't even there for that. We were there to go minister to kids in the streets. They had 4 services while I was there. I was at all of them. It was incredible. But while I was in there, they had the whole Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir, and they were unbelievable. And as they were singing, it was like God wouldn't even let me open my mouth to sing with them. Not that I can sing very well, but I wanted to worship. And it was just like God was trying to say something to me. So I just stood there, and I just listened. And God gave me Psalm 46:10, which many of you know this verse, but here's what it says. It says, "Be still and know that I am God, and I will be honored by every nation. I'll be honored throughout the world." So that first phrase, though, be still and know that I am God. I'm just telling you that just went through, that I almost had to sit down. It was just so heavy on me. But here's how God told me, be still and know that I am God. Sit down, shut up, and listen. Sit down, be still. I'm going to tell you, in today's world, just being still is a feat of its own. Watch a family with a few little kids when you go out to eat next time and see how many electronic devices are on the table. Just to be still and have a conversation is almost impossible, it feels like. And the Holy Spirit was saying, be still, sit down, and know, shut up, because you don't know everything, and know that I am God. He has all the answers. Sit down, shut up, and listen. And in Jesus' name, I want to tell you all this morning, sit down, shut up, and listen. Not to me, to him. He wants to lead you. He's trying to lead you. But we know everything. We can't even get an answer from God because we know everything. In fact, I would say a lot of people aren't even honestly reachable. And there's a good reason for it. Because they're not teachable. They have all the answers. In fact, let me just show it to you on the screen. If you want to be reachable, you must be teachable. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. And there's been a lot of times, I'm going to tell you, people who think they know everything are very annoying to those of us who do. When it comes to like fixes, I'm not a fixer, but I always search it up on YouTube all day. I'll spend 4 hours researching it before I turn one bolt. That's me. So you people who are like choleric driven, I will get on your nerves. My wife was just like, can we just get the wrench out at least? I'm like, I don't know which wrench I need yet. She's trying to check it off the list, and I'm just like, I just got to make sure this is right. If we turn it a little too far, it might mess something up. So I'm always trying to learn, but there are times I just jump into something I don't know nothing about, and I will make a mess of it. And Jesus saying, I want to lead you. I want to lead you into some green pastures. That's what he tells us. But we have to follow him. Look at the next verse in John 10. Look at 5. They won't follow a stranger. They will run for him because they don't know his voice. So in other words, we're not going to go after this person because we don't know them. We're going to go after Jesus. He said a sheep is going to follow the people that he knows. Sometimes it's just a sound. We live in a cat neighborhood. we have a cat who thinks he's a dog, and he's up for grabs if anybody would like a free cat. There's none of those on the internet. So Kai told me this morning, he said he went out and fed the cat. Well, when he did, it makes a noise in the bowl. And guess who came running? We have a neighbor cat, twice as big as our cat, big old black, almost like a leopard, or not a leopard, what's a panther, walking through the yard, belly dragging the floor. Well, yeah, he's eating all my cat's food. But the sound attracted him. No wonder he's so big. I mean, and our cat will sit there and watch that cat eat his food. So we started him out a couple of days, and all of a sudden he started defending that food bowl real good. But just the sound drew him. I'm just going to tell you, when you hear the sound of Jesus, it should draw us. But we have so many things that are drowning us out. Jesus is trying to lead us, and we can't hear him because hobbies, social media, family, fun. How long has it been since you just sat in a room, turned everything off, and just sat there and were still for more than 5 minutes? For most of us, it's been a long time. A lot of y'all can't even go to sleep unless you got your phone on you. And if you didn't have the little grabby thing behind your fingers, it would hit the floor about 10 times a week. Jesus is telling these people, look, people who don't know me people who don't know the stranger's voice won't go to them, they'll actually go to me. And then the people around him are like, we don't know what you're talking about. Those who are around him said, we don't understand this illustration. So he explained to them, I tell you the truth, I am the gate for the sheep. So he starts to explain a little bit more. He says, I am the gate for the sheep. He's the goat and the gate, right? The greatest of all time. I almost call this message the goat gate, but that means something else in the Bible, so I didn't call it that. It says, all who come before me were, here we see it again, thieves and robbers is the same exact word in the original language. Those who are thieves or pirates, and those who look like they're supposed to be there, but they're actually embezzling, false teachers. But the true sheep did not listen to them. Yes, I am the gate, and those who come through me will be saved. So he says, I'm trying to lead you somewhere new. I'm trying to lead you to some better pastures. I'm trying to lead you to where I want you to be. If you'll follow after me, he says that he saved us and he's leading us. He says those who come through me will be saved, and they will come and go freely and will find good pastures. Jesus wants to lead us into some good things in life. If you think that being a Christian means you have to be broke and sick and discouraged all the time, you got a different Jesus than I got. Now, I'm not going to tell you that you're never going to be sick and live on a mansion on the hill. That's not what I'm telling you. But I'm telling you that he wants to lead you into some good pastures. In fact, I would say good pastors lead people to good pastures. And guess what you are? You're a pastor. The Bible says we're all ministers within. We all have that minister within us. I heard a Robert Morris say, if you don't know this, he pastors Gateway Church in not Denver, Dallas. And he said one time a local pastor was upset with him. He's like, you're taking all my people. You're just taking all my sheep. And he said, we don't steal sheep. We just plant delicious grass. I love that. We just want to plant. We want you to be in good pastures. We want to lead you to some places where you can say, man, I'm different than I was 5 years ago. I'm different than I was a year ago. Now, that ain't us doing it. It's him doing it, but we want to lead you to that place. And then he gets to verse 10. This is probably the most recognizable verse in this whole passage, in this verse 10. And it's this. It says, the thief's purpose is to steal, to kill, and destroy, but my purpose is to give a rich and satisfying life. Now, in this context, it's actually the same word there for thief, which is, he's talking about people, but of course the devil is influencing those people. So it's not necessarily, is he talking about the devil here? He probably is, but not necessarily. He said the thief, the person who's coming to embezzle, to false teach, to do all those things, their purpose is to steal, to kill, and destroy. And I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people who got led astray from the wrong leaders. I know a lot of people, look, he actually says in this passage, you can come and go freely. In other words, it's not a cult. And you can go back and research cults, and I'm telling you, there are some very wicked, horrible leaders who have led people. And you know what they wanted? They wanted fortune, fame. They wanted to be famous. They wanted to have money. And if we're not careful, we won't have this because we're following the wrong leader. Look what he says. The thief's purpose is to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And Jesus' purpose is to give you a rich and satisfying life. And he doesn't mean money. Now, does it mean financially? He'll financially bless you to some degree? I think it does. But he doesn't mean financially. He's talking about to have all the things that you need to get through life and to walk in abundance and to help lead people there. So Jesus saves us, and then he leads us. Here's the third thing he does for us. I love this. He delivers us. He delivers us. He delivers us from some deep, dark places. You know, the Israelites, they got out of Egypt, and but what happened was they were out of Egypt, but they didn't have Egypt out of them. And they were still thinking like slaves. In fact, they even told Moses and the leaders, they're like, let us go back there. At least we had 3 square meals a day. That'd be like you going, hey, I'm tired of cooking. Can you just go put me in jail for a couple of years? I'm so sick of cooking. By the way, you newly married, the people who are about to get married, you know what your life is for the rest of your life? What's for supper? That's the rest of your life right there. I could just sum it up. What's for supper? You know the answer every time? I don't know. Kai asked me yesterday about 2 o'clock, what's for supper? I was like, are we doing supper? Listen, he delivers us. We have to get the Egypt out of us. There was a group of people who said, I had 3 square meals a day. Let me just go back there. I could have died in peace. Yes, I was worked crazy hours. Yes, it almost killed me with the work labor. But at least we knew what we were getting over there. We don't know where we're going out here. He wants to deliver you from that. He wants to get the Egypt out of you. Some of y'all are struggling with stuff that's been 5, 10, 20, 30 years old. A word that was spoken. Oh my gosh, if I could tell you how many people I've counseled with, I start digging and find out that somebody told them something when they were 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or even in their 30s or 40s, and it's still lingering in their life today. It will set you free, but you got to get the Egypt out of you. That's what he tells us in Ephesians. He tells us what he does here. I love this. He says, I also pray that you will understand the incredible greatness of God's power for us who believe in him. This is the same mighty power. We're talking about deliverance now. This is the same mighty power. Watch what happens. That raised Christ from the dead. The same power that raised Christ from the dead and seated him in the place of honor at God's right hand in the heavenly realms. That same kind of power is inside you. So not only are you delivered, but he wants you to do something about it. Look, let's keep reading. Look at the next verse. Look at verse 21. It says, now he is far above any ruler or authority or power or leader or anything else, not only in this world, but also the world to come. So he wants to get the Egypt out of you. He wants to set you free from some things, some addictions. I don't know what it's like to have a drug addiction, but I know what it's like to have a food addiction. Come on. I don't know what it's like to be in bondage to cigarettes or alcohol. I don't know what that's like. But I know what it's like to have an anger issue. I know what it's like to be bitter for a decade because of church hurt. He can deliver you from that. A lot of you know my story. I was praying saying, God, what do you want me to do? I'm ready to go to the next level. He said, you need to forgive that person that upset you when you were 17 years old. And I was 27 at this point. And I was like, no. Actually, I started praying that prayer when I was about 22. And his answer was, you need to forgive. And I was like, nah, wasn't my fault. I was a teenager. He was an adult. Wasn't my fault. About a year would go by and say, okay, God, I'm ready to go. He'd say, nope, you're not. Go forgive. And I was like, nope, it wasn't my fault. And a year would go by and say, okay, I'm ready to go. He's like, no, you're not. I was like, what you want me to do? He says, go forgive that person. And then he said this about 7 years into it. Now I'm talking about 7 years. Not 7 days, not 7 months, 7 years into it. I said, okay, Lord, what do you want me to do? And he said this, I'm not telling you to do anything until you do the last thing I told you to do. See, a lot of us want to skip past that. You got hurt and you got bitterness and you got pain and you're not willing to deal with it. You ain't going nowhere with Jesus. Now, he'll save you, he'll deliver you, but you still got Egypt inside of you. You got to get it out. He's got this kind of power that he wants you to pour in other people, but we're so hung up on our hurts and our scars of the past that we can't get free from it. He wants to deliver you. So after a decade, y'all, from 17 to 27, I finally said, okay. And I called the person up. I hadn't seen him in a decade. And it was an amazing conversation. I was praying he wouldn't even answer, but he did. And it was just, there was so much grace and forgiveness there. And I felt like a new person. I felt I had the freedom that I did when I first got saved. And some of y'all are walking in that today. See, he did save us. And he does want to lead us. But y'all, He wants to deliver you from the things of your past. And it's the one thing the devil wants you to hold on to. I'm going to tell you right now, everybody in this room, every single person in this room has a pain from the past, and you can justify it to a T. Because you know what? You were the victim. You know what? It wasn't your fault. But you know what? You still have to forgive. Doesn't mean you have to call them up and remind them what they did. No. It has to be in here. Now, if God leads you to do it, then you do it. But if he doesn't tell you to do it, then don't do it, because you can cause more problems that way. But he saves us. Y'all, he wants to lead us. He delivers us. And here's a fourth thing. He empowers us. He empowers us. Not only does he free you from what you have, but he empowers you to do more for him. Look at Luke 10:19. I love this verse of scripture. It says, look, I have given you authority over all the power of the enemy. He has empowered us with authority over all the power of the enemy, and you can walk among snakes, no thank you, and scorpions, and crush them, and nothing will injure you. I don't like snakes. I don't take this as a challenge, and I don't think he meant it as a challenge. But what he's saying is there shouldn't be anything that you're afraid of, because I'm going to tell you right now, the fear that we have in our life is what empowers the devil to jump in and start wreaking some havoc. When you're afraid of something, don't think the devil don't know. He's watching. Now, he can't read your mind, but he can listen to what you're saying. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Dad and I were chatting with somebody. We were talking about that. It's important. Job, you know what Job said after all the stuff happened to him? He said, that which I greatly feared has come upon me. Well, how did that happen? Because the devil heard what he said and then made that thing happen. We have to get this. He's empowered us with authority to deliver other people. And so he's empowered us. So he doesn't want other people to be in the same place that you were. He wants to help you get out of that. Look at the next verse. Look at Luke 10:20. But don't rejoice because evil spirits obey you. Don't rejoice because what he's telling them here is that the people came back and they were like, look, the disciples came back and they said, look, we were casting out demons. He said, look, that's amazing, but don't rejoice just because demons listen to you and obey you. Rejoice because your names are registered in heaven. It goes back to Jesus saves. See, this is this whole process. But what happens is we get so hung up on the deliverance part, that's what we start tapping into. And he says, like, don't rejoice because you can cast out some demons. Rejoice because your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Rejoice because Jesus died for your sins and he saved you to the uttermost. That's why you rejoice. And maybe you're here today and you haven't done that. Maybe you're trying to earn your salvation. Maybe you're trying to be good enough. We talked about this in prayer this morning. One of the biggest lies of the enemy is that you have to be perfect before you come to church. I'm just going to tell you, that's just like having to be well before you go to the hospital. This is a hospital. This is for the broken. This is for the hurting. These are for the people who, listen, if this church is for the perfect, then I got to get out of here. And I tell people, look, if you're looking for the perfect church, this ain't it. And when you find one, don't stay because you'll ruin it. Because you ain't perfect either. And we look at people and think that they got it all together. They don't have it all together. They're crying themselves to sleep at night too. Don't let social media fool you about what's really going on in people's lives. Because that trip that they just took that you thought was amazing cost them $20,000 on a credit card that they can't afford. And all you saw was the highlights. You didn't see them bickering and fighting and having to eat peanut butter jelly sandwiches because they couldn't afford the calamari that they ordered. Been on a lot of trips that looked amazing online, but we were eating sandwiches in the car. Anybody been there? Don't look at other people's lives through social media and go, man, they really got it together. No, they don't. Nobody does. That's why he saves us, and then he leads us, and then he delivers us, and then he empowers us to go set other people free. God has more for you than you can imagine, but you got to be teachable. If you want to be reachable, you got to be teachable. You don't know it all. I don't know it all. That's why I'm constantly saying, God, show me. I stand right over here and I pray every Sunday, God, give me fresh revelation even as I speak. Because I don't know it all, and neither do you. Be teachable, be teachable, be teachable. I don't know about you, but when God set me free, I wanted to go tell everybody. I want to set some other people free. He's empowered you to do that, but you got to walk in it.